top stories, we have 6 persons killed and 80 more injured in nursing home fire in Milan. Israeli forces killed 2 wanted Palestinians in the West Bank. Plus, Taliban bans beauty salons in Afghanistan. Hello and welcome to the World News right here on voptv. My name is Esther Mwachukwu. A fire at a Milan nursing home has actually killed 6 of the residents and injured 80 others. Firefighters said the blaze began about 1:30 a.m. today, apparently in the room of 2 female residents who were among the dead. Also dead were other 3 women and a man. Among the injured, 2 were in a critical condition, while most of the others were being treated for smoke inhalation, firefighters disclosed to the state radio. Luca Cari, a spokesperson for Italy's National Firefighter Corps, said they were investigating the cause of the blaze, which was contained early in the morning. Now, Israeli forces have killed 2 wanted Palestinians in a flashpoint city in the occupied West Bank. The incident came days after Israel concluded a major 2-day offensive meant to crack down on militants. The persistent violence raised questions about the effectiveness of the raid earlier this week, which saw Israel launch rare airstrikes on militant targets, deploy hundreds of troops and cause widespread damage to roads, homes and troops and businesses. As a result of the raid, 12 Palestinians and 1 Israeli soldier were killed. The raid bore the hallmarks of the Second Palestinian Uprising, a period of violence in the early 2000s that killed thousands. Meanwhile, Palestinian officials actually said that Israel was targeting more persons concerning the incursion. Thousands of Palestinians marched through the streets of Jenin on Wednesday for the funeral of the 12 people killed in Israel's largest military operation in the occupied West Bank in more than 20 years. The 2-day incursion into the sprawling refugee camp, which caused extensive damage to roads, homes and cars, ended earlier on Wednesday, the Israeli Defense Forces disclosed. As a result, the United Nations expressed deep concerns over the violence. Those who died were aged 16 to 23 and scores more injured. Palestinian officials said Israel was targeting Palestinian terrorists and 1 of its soldiers was killed in the operation. 8 of those who were killed were members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. As the bodies were prepared for the funeral procession, many were wrapped in Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad flags and carried through the streets on Wednesday. Marksmen carrying automatic weapons walked among the crowds of mourners. Many wore the arm and headbands of their factions with their faces masked and fired their guns in the air in a demonstration of strength and defiance. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has called on NATO to send a clear signal about the nation's future membership in the military alliance less than a week ahead of a NATO summit in the Lithuanian capital. Zelensky made the comments at a July 6 conference in Prague alongside Czech President Petr Pavel, and Pavel expressed support for Ukraine's bid to join NATO. Both NATO and the European Union as well were in that impasse. Now, cities across China opened their air raid shelters to offer residents relief from the heat on Friday, which is unusually high. Temperatures across parts of the country started claiming lives. Northern China is experiencing strings of days with record high temperatures compounded by drought. Earlier this week, Beijing reported more than 9 straight days with temperatures exceeding 35 degrees Celsius, which is about 95 Fahrenheit. And this is according to the National Climate Center, a streak unseen since 1961. Cities including Hangzhou on China's east coast, Wuhan in the center of the country, and Xiaozhuang in Hebei province neighboring Beijing over the past week announced opening their air raid shelters to residents seeking to escape the heat. Authorities have issued health alerts and in the capital, including other areas, suspended Outdoor works were also encouraged. Now, 2 deaths in Beijing have been attributed to the scorching heat. Health authorities said a tour guide collapsed and died of heat stroke on Sunday while giving a tour of the Summer Palace, a vast 18th century imperial garden. Last month, a woman as well in Beijing also died from a heat stroke. More than 20 anti-government protesters were arrested in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, today, and other parts of the country also witnessed demonstrations called by the opposition against newly imposed taxes. Hundreds of protesters turned up in Nairobi, as well as in the coastal city of Mombasa and the lakeside city of Kisumu, where the opposition enjoys huge support, but were dispersed by police who fired tear gas canisters at them. The protesters had lit bonfires and barricaded some major roads. Nairobi Police Commander Adamson Bungei told the Associated Press today that more than 20 people had been arrested by midday, but did not disclose what charges they will face. Also, the opposition has called for the demonstration to protest the newly imposed taxes on petroleum products, salaried workers and businesses. The implementation of the newly signed law that increased taxes has been suspended by a court pending the hearing of a case filed by an opposition senator challenging its legality. The government has, however, implemented the tax on petroleum products. Opposition supporters are expected to congregate at a rally in Nairobi, where Odinga said he would announce further steps towards fighting the new taxes. Police say the rally is legal, but ongoing demonstrations are illegal. Some businesses in major cities were closed today. Bangladesh is home to around 1 million ethnic Rohingya people, most of whom fled a 2017 military crackdown in neighboring Myanmar that is now subject to a genocide probe at the UN court. This week's violence was the latest in a series of deadly clashes between the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army and the Rohingya Solidarity Organization, 2 rival insurgent groups operating in the camps. Farooq Ahmed, a spokesman for the armed police battalion that looks after security in the refugee camps, said that 5 people have been shot dead in a gunfight before dawn today. Ahmed said the violence came hours after the murder of Abdullah, a refugee community leader, apparently on the hands of ARSA members. The insurgent group did not immediately comment on the killings, but its members have been accused of targeting Rohingya civic leaders who challenge its authority. Its leader, Atullah Abu Ammar Jununi, was last year charged in absentia with the murder of a popular peace activist Mohib Ullah in 2021. Mohib Ullah had regularly spoken out against ARSA's activities in the camps. The murder prompted security forces in January to evict a makeshift settlement on the Myanmar border that ARSA had allegedly used as a staging post for the methamphetamine trafficking to fund its operations. Dozens have been killed in Rohingya camp clashes so far this year, including women and children. In Bangladesh and Myanmar have also renewed efforts to begin repatriating Rohingya refugees to their homeland, where the stateless minority have been subject to decades of persecution and are denied citizenship. Meanwhile, EU member states and the European Parliament agreed on Friday to a $544 million support package for the European defense industry to provide artillery and missiles for Ukraine and to restock. The Council of the European Union, the EU institution representing member states, announced in a statement that it had reached a provisional agreement on the act in support of ammunition production with European Parliament negotiators. The law will urgently mobilize €500 million from the EU budget and current prices to support the ramp-up of the manufacturing capacities for the production of ground-to-ground and artillery ammunition as well as missiles. Also, the Commission will help EU countries restock their arsenals and continue military support for Ukraine. The law creates a financial instrument to allocate grants for the defense industry to boost production capacity and improve supply and value chains. In the wake of the EU facing criticism for slow decision-making in this urgent situation, the European Parliament's plenary session in EU capitals are expected to formally okay the deal. Meanwhile, the Taliban has banned beauty salons and ordered that all beauty and hair salons be shut down in Afghanistan. The militant group governing the country on Friday gave a bizarre reason for the decision. They said the salons were banned because they were offered services forbidden by Islam and caused economic hardships for grooms' families during wedding festivities. In line with custom, grooms' families are required to pay for the pre-wedding salon visit by the bride and her close female relatives. Taliban's decision to impose a ban on beauty salons drew concerns from international officials worried about the impact on female entrepreneurs. The ruling is the latest curb on the rights and freedoms of Afghan women and girls following edicts barring them from education, public spaces, and most forms of employment. Women have been banned from working for the United Nations. More than 60,000 women are on the verge of losing their jobs after the Taliban ordered the shuttering of beauty salons. Several women makeup artists are protesting the ban. They have requested for the order to be rescinded. Now, the European Union has attracted more than $98 billion worth of investment in the semiconductor industry since its landmark law was announced. EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen said on Friday at a joint news conference with Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo during the visit to the headquarters of the Inter-University Microelectronics Center, a non-profit research and development organization specializing in nanotechnology in Leuven, Belgium. Elsewhere, South Africa's Department of Health has urged the country's population to remain vigilant and avoid known or suspected contaminated food, water, and surfaces following a cholera outbreak. The department also encouraged South Africans to wash their hands thoroughly with soap before handling and preparing food or after using the bathroom to prevent possible infection. Gauteng was one of the first areas to report cases of cholera among community members. There have been other confirmed cases in the Northwest, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and the Free State. The National Institute of Communicable Diseases and cholera mainly spreads through contaminated water. People can become infected directly through drinking contaminated water or indirectly through eating contaminated food. Symptoms of cholera include diarrhea, rehydration, vomiting, and body weakness. While in Germany, it has disclosed that it is opposed to sending cluster munitions to Ukraine a day after U.S. officials said Washington was planning to provide Kiev with weapons widely denounced for killing and maiming civilians. Human rights organizations oppose such a move, and German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock said that Germany, as one of the 111 states party to the Convention on Cluster Munitions, did as well. The United States is not a party to the convention. Human Rights Watch called on Russia and Ukraine to stop using cluster munitions and urged the U.S. not to supply them. The group said that both Russian and Ukrainian forces have used the weapons, which have killed Ukrainian civilians. The munitions typically release large numbers of smaller bomblets that can kill indiscriminately over a wide area, threatening civilians. Bomblets that fail to explode pose a danger for years after a conflict ends. Meanwhile, the World Bank has provided $1 billion to strengthen resilience and improve the livelihood of the people in the countries affected by the insurgency in Lake Chad. The bank's country manager for Chad, Rasit Petov, made this known on Thursday during the 4th Lake Chad Governors Forum meeting in N'Djamena. The forum occurs amidst shifting conflict patterns and emerging challenges that have resulted in widespread displacement, damage to the social fabric, interrupted public services, and weakened institutional capacities across the affected countries, which are Chad, Cameroon, Niger, and Nigeria. Petov lauded the regional stability program aimed at restoring and improving security in Lake Chad and called for redoubled efforts towards sustainable recovery in areas that were economically affected. The Lake Chad Governors Forum, themed New Opportunities for Peace in Shifting Security Context, aims to improve understanding of emerging security trends in the region and their implications for ongoing efforts to restore state authority. It also seeks to find ways to scale up and forge partnerships to address the plight of forcibly displaced people, including refugees and internally displaced persons. And that brings us to a wrap right here on the World News on VOP TV. My name is Esther Wachikudu. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP TV Live. Also like and share on our social media handles at VOP TV Live. Up next is VOP Business Show. Stay with us.